My name's Ian Jemison, welcome to Smart Carping. I'm here at Ashridge Manor Farm, just outside Wokingham, a classic modern day ticket match fishery that's absolutely stuffed with carp. Great carp, very hard fighting, up to about 10 or 12 pound, but on average about 5. And I'd like to talk to you guys today about method feeder fishing. There's lots of confusion out there about hybrid feeders, pellet feeders, method feeders, and I wanted to run through a few basics, try and simplify things and help you get the best from your feeder fishing. So today I've set up two identical method feeder rods. They're both Preston Innovation 10-foot monster carp rods, quiver tips. On the rods I've got two Daiwa TDR front drag reels. The reels are loaded with Daiwa Tournament ST 8-pound line, just to give me the strength I need to battle some of these very heavy carp. That's my equipment. Let's put it to use and show you how it works. So the terminal tackle is really quite simple. It's an inline Guru method feeder, 36 grams, a bit of weight, but it's really good for what I need. The line is threaded through the Guru feeder and terminated at a Guru Quick Connect buffer bead. And then on the buffer bead, I've got a 4-inch Guru 7-pound hook link with a QM1 size 14 hook with a band on the end. Can't be simpler. Bait for method feeder fishing is relatively straightforward. On the table here I've got a selection of 2mm pellets, some standard ones, yellow F1s and some ringers. Some of these have been soaked slightly longer to make them slightly softer, which is more appropriate for a different kind of method feeder. I've also got ground bait, some 6mm pellets that I'm going to use the catapult to ping over the top of my feed line, and an array of brightly coloured hook baits. The swim I've chosen today has got an island in front of me, about 20 to 25 metres away. The carp live all around the island and especially in the undercuts, and the method feeder is devastating at taking the carp from these situations. Accuracy in casting is the key here, and to achieve accurate casting I use the line clip on my spool to make sure that I get the method feeder as close as I possibly can to the island on the margin and catch those patrolling carp as they come past. So, setting the line clip, setting the range. The first thing I'll do is I'll put my method feeder on the line with a buffer bead and start casting towards the island. When I get to within 2 metres or so, I'll then clip the line up, i.e. I'll pull the rod to one side, tighten the line down and then put the line in the line clip on the spool. From there I'll have a couple of practice casts and see how close I'm getting, and I will take a loop of line or 2 loops of line off as I need it to get closer and closer and closer to the island, until I've achieved a distance that I feel comfortable that I can achieve in the weather conditions I've got regularly, time and time again. Once I'm happy with that, the rig all comes back in, I put a hook link on, put some bait on, fire a baited rig out into the water and wait for the carp to come along and find my trap that's been set. It's very easy to get wildly confused with the massive array and selection of method feeders there are in the fishing tackle shops. I fish mainly with two, a standard method feeder and a hybrid. Now, I'll use a standard method feeder when I want to put a lot of bait into the lake. It's very effective at doing that. However, it has a downside. And the downside is that if you cast a method feeder like this at range, or you're fishing in deep water, it's not unusual for the ground bait to come off the feeder as it impacts the water surface, and in deep water it will come off the feeder as the feeder works its way to the bottom. However, the hybrid feeder with its shoulders guarantees me that the bait will get all the way to the bottom and deep lakes, and it will also ensure that it casts straight and true because it's weight forward, and because it carries slightly less bait than the standard method feeder, in those cooler months when a method feeder can be devastating, this will put less feed on, ensuring you catch more fish without overfeeding them. So, unlike the method feeder, the hybrid feeder does not need a mould. In fact, it is its own mould. So we load it slightly differently. We put a bed of pellets into the bottom of the hybrid feeder and compress them down, maybe just a few more. Make a little indent, and now spring your hook bait up and pop it in the indent, and then just give it a covering of pellets, and there it is, ready to go. I use an awful lot of pellets from my method feeder, both for the hybrid and the method feeder. And the pellets I prefer are the Sonu 2mm stickies and the Dynamite F1 sweets. I prepare them in very different ways for both the hybrid feeder and the method feeder. So for the hybrid, what I will do, I take about a pint of pellets. I don't need a lot of bait. Put them in a shallow maggot bowl, cover them in water, so you can see that the pellets are just about covered. Put the lid on them and then put them to one side for 20 minutes. When 20 minutes is up, we'll turn the maggot box upside down and allow the water to drain out, and we'll have a very wet but perfect pellet for a hybrid feeder. Now, those wet pellets are absolutely no good for a method feeder where we need a sticky pellet to stay on the method, and for that we mix them differently. So we take the 2mm Sonus. Again, about a pint is all you need. Pour lake water over the top of them so they're soaking. There we go. Completely flooded in water, and we leave those just for 10 seconds. When 10 seconds is up, we do the standard thing, take the strainer out, leave the water to drain off, and once all the water's drained off, we put them into another shallow maggot bowl and they're ready. Now, 10 seconds is all I need to get a nice crunchy pellet with a sticky outside coating. Those combination of pellets will bag me no end of carp. And just to give me an edge, I'll often mix up just a few F1 sweets and blend a few of the F1 sweets with the standard Ringers pellets to give me just a little bit of a sweet edge. If the fish want it, it's a real devastating effective method. So those are the pellets. Let's have a little look at the ground bait. Okay, so pellets can be devastatingly effective, but they can put a lot of food into the lake. So in a complement to my bait, what I'll often use is just some ground bait. This is Sonu Method Mix, and it's a brilliant complement. And at those times of the year when you want flavour and smell and taste in the water, but you don't want lots of food, this is a real good edge to use on your method feeder. Let's show you how we mix it up. It's not too tricky. We'll go through a few simple steps and show the end result. So we have lake water, a nice big open mixing bowl and a riddle. As before with the pellets, you don't need lots of bait. About a pint is okay. There we go. So, ground bait's in. Always add water, little and often, just a little bit. You can always add more. You can't take it out once it's in. Get your fingers in and mix it really, really well. Take your time with this, don't rush it. It's handy if you've got a little bit of ground bait spare, because if you do overwet it slightly and you can't recover it, you can always add a little bit of dry to bring it back. Now it's starting to get there. You can see that it's starting to ball up, but if I crush it, it goes all the way back down to dust. But what I've certainly got is an awful lot of lumps in there, which is where the water's plugged the ground bait up, which is where the riddle in a moment will come into play and help me fix it. Right, just a little bit more water. Again, whisking it all around. Trying to get all that water all the way through the ground bait. Just like your pellets, you mustn't rush this, take your time. Once you've got the ground bait mixed a bit, let it stand and let it settle. Right, that's getting about there. Now run it through a riddle. You can see the lumps now. The riddle catches the lumps out. These are all damp spots. Let's just run that through the riddle. And now I've got a lovely, soft, fluffy ground bait that will ball up nicely, but also flatten back down to a dust in no time at all. This is a brilliant method mix for the method feeder. And at those times of the year when you don't want a lot of food in the water, you want to attract the fish in, this is a devastating ground bait to use on your method feeders. Right, so we've cast out into the lake, the trap is set. You can't miss the bites normally, the rod gets absolutely dragged round. So to prevent you from losing your rod, I've got a quiver tip rest at the front which holds the rod and supports it very well with multiple grooves, and at the back I've got a rear rod rest that really does hold and grip the rod. Now this on the odd occasion will save you from going in after your rod, because I've seen many rods dragged in when people are fishing with method feeders and not concentrating on their rods. The bites are very, very difficult to miss. The rod will absolutely tear around with a method feeder. Take your time once the fish is hooked. Keep the rod square to the fish. That way the nice soft action on these Preston rods cushion the hook hold. I'm using a soft clutch as well, so if the fish does want to lunge at the last moment, the clutch will give line, nice and compliant. There we go. Don't rush these things. You might wait a few minutes for a bite, and you don't want to lose them by rushing them and pulling them in too quickly. The carp are really strong, and they will really pull back. Even if they're relatively small, they'll give you a really good fight. And when you hit a large carp, you could well be battling a carp for anything up to 10 or 15 minutes. This one doesn't feel particularly big, but we're not going to rush it, just take our time. The fish is a bit too close now to play the rod sideways. I've got it within netting distance. I just need it to decide it's going to give up and have a nice photograph of me. What a lovely way to spend a day's fishing, catching fish on the method feeder. Such a simple and devastatingly effective method. There's not many fish in the lake that don't get caught on method feeders. Especially big fat hungry carp. Alright, come on. Come on. Come and say hello to the landing net. There we go. Not bad. 3 or 4 pounds, doesn't matter. It still made me a very happy angler. Let's unhook him, get back in and catch another one. So we've loaded both of our hybrid and our normal method feeders with ground bait or pellets. Now what I'd like to do is to show you how they respond when they're underwater and how the hook links behave as the method feeders start to break down. Okay, now I've loaded the method feeder with pellets very tightly and we've dropped it into the shallow clear tank of water. You can see immediately the pellets are starting to expand and break away from the method feeder. Very soon we have quite a large spread of pellets and our hook link springs away and sits right on the very edge of the pellets. It is a trap and carp do get caught on it, but you've got to be aware that the rig could spring away. Let's have a look at the hybrid feeder now. So a hybrid feeder again is packed very tightly. It's sitting nicely on the bottom of on the lake bed, on the bottom of the tank, and you can see slowly, a lot more slowly than the method feeder, the pellets are pinging off in 1s and 2s. It takes double if not triple the time for the pellets to really start coming out from the hybrid feeder. Unfortunately, just at the end, when all the pellets did spring out, our hook link sprung a long way away, nearly 4 inches from our hybrid feeder. We'll have a look at that in future videos and see if there's any way we can overcome that and keep our bait nice and tight. But this is a real eye-opening opportunity to see what our feeders do when they're on the lake bed.